Good evening, everyone. It's really my great pleasure to be here today. In fact, I have been a very regular traveller to this great country. I think over the past 40 years or so, I've been here 80 times, so India is like a home away from home for me. What I like to do today is just share a few thoughts with you. We only have a little bit of time, and if you have any questions, you'll be most welcome. I actually travel a lot in my life and spend my time almost constantly on the move and have spent time in most corners of the world. All of us every day, we watch and we listen to what's happening around our world. There's always a great long list of crises. I think that's true, isn't it? But one of the crises I feel that we don't often hear about is the crises of leadership. And everywhere I go in the world, people mention, and I would say virtually every corner of this planet, that they've lost faith in leaders. Whether they are political, religious, business, or even if I can say within the family. And I have a friend in London who's an author, and he has often said to me that there's never been a time where there's been more written about leadership. There's so much written about how to be a leader, and yet there's never been a time when there's such a lack of leadership in this world. And I think all of you know Albert Schweitzer, who was the great explorer of the last century. And he once said that example is not the best form of leadership, it's the only form of leadership. And what actually happens today, because all of you are leaders and all of you are potential leaders, is that we become very well educated. We get our MBAs, we get our degrees, we learn to manage things externally. But actually management is different from leadership, as you all know. Management is a system where I learn how to organize, plan, and run a group of people or an organization. But leadership is really based on my personality. It's based on my values, my principles, my ethics. And it's leadership which really inspires others. And it's really what I believe people are craving for in this world, to have people that they can follow. And as you heard, when I went to university myself, but I spent 3 years traveling the world. And it was a wonderful education for me. Because you read about things, you watch things, but to actually go and live in many corners of the world, live with people and learn about culture and religion is a wonderful thing. As I was traveling, I began to learn to meditate. And to be very honest with you, I was amazed at how little control I had of my mind. And I can remember saying, I was really very well educated to understand the world out there. But in a sense, we have very little education to understand the internal world. We may actually have a religious faith, but that doesn't mean that I have the ability to understand my mind and control my mind. And when I began to meditate, I remember observing my mental reactions to people. You know how sometimes people say a few words, or their facial expression can trigger a lot of thinking inside. And can we put a full stop to that thinking? It hurts my heart or influences me. My mind starts to think, and I can't stop. And I remember thinking that it's like I'm a slave inside my own mind. There's very little power to control my thinking. Even my emotional state too. Sometimes emotions are triggered by others. And I can remember thinking that even though we are well educated for a career, etc., but there's no real inner leadership. And I do feel that we're coming into a time where people really want us not only to help manage and organize, but also be a good example and an inspiration internally. And this is why I think today there's 3 forms of wisdom that all of us need in our careers. The first, as we know, is that intellectual ability, what we call IQ, the intelligence to understand the world around me, to pass exams, to develop a career, make money. It's very important. But when you feel anxious, when you feel tense inside, when you have a worry that doesn't go away, does this intelligence help you? Does it help? I don't think so. So that's one form of wisdom that we need. It's a very important wisdom. The second, as we hear a lot today, and it's just fancy language, is emotional intelligence, which is really the intelligence to create and sustain good relationships, loving relationships with others. My own view is that a leader requires more than an MBA, even from Harvard or somewhere, is the ability to understand other people. Sometimes we're highly qualified academically, but emotionally can't relate to people at all. And often it's mothers who have this incredible emotional intelligence, and they're able to read people and understand their feelings and know how to respond to them. And at the heart of emotional intelligence is my ability to communicate. I would say in your job, your ability to communicate with your colleagues and your ability to communicate with your clients is absolutely foundation to your success in your career. And many of us forget, sometimes we speak intelligently, but each time you communicate with another person, there's 3 layers of communication. One is what you say. The second is the feelings, the vibrations you give to others. And the third is your facial expression. There's the verbal part and the non-verbal. And you know, research shows us that the non-verbal part has 90% of the impact of any communication. So when you get 2 messages, when you're talking to a client, when you're talking to a colleague, one is what you hear and one is what you feel. You will always trust what you feel. And sometimes some of us wonder why I'm not very successful, why the clients don't really respond to me, why my colleagues or peers, even my seniors, don't really respond to me. Because when I keep critical thinking, negative thinking, assumptions about others in my mind, people do feel it. I've learned over the years that if you want to get on with other people, if you hold their history in your thinking, if in your mind you're seeing their weaknesses, it's like an energy that they feel and you can't come close. And so in leadership, I need that intellectual ability to understand what to do. But I need this emotional wisdom as to understand people, how to connect and communicate with others. But I would say that the real wisdom that we need today is what I call spiritual intelligence. If emotional intelligence is the wisdom to build rich, positive relationships with others, spiritual intelligence is the wisdom to have a rich, positive relationship with myself. And this is where inner leadership begins. Because the first relationship in life is with me. And quite frankly, if it's not healthy, even though I present a face to other people, but inside I'm putting myself down, I'm self-critical, I'm fearing failure or disapproval of others, that feeling doesn't allow me to grow. And I've learned over the years that there's a big difference between what I would say self-confidence and self-respect. We have the confidence to talk to people, We have the confidence to run the office. We have the confidence to do things. It doesn't mean that I feel good about who I am. And often there's a big disconnect between who I am and what I do. I'm a manager, I do that well. But the leader is who I am. And when we really realize that it's my character, the quality of my thinking and my behavior which is really influential in the workplace, we place more emphasis on that side of life. And I often seen that these days, when we stop doing, wherever you go in this world, it's rush, go, do. It never stops. Why? Because when we stop, sometimes there's an emptiness inside. You know, there's a vacuum, there's not much there. So this emptiness, you know, often we call it these days depression. And you know, in psychology, depression is like a sadness. And you know, 1 in 4 human beings suffers from depression, according to the World Health Organization. It's an epidemic, isn't it? In psychology, it's like a sadness, a deep sadness that my dreams in life haven't been fulfilled. My dream to be loved, my dream to be valued, my dream to be respected hasn't happened. But spiritually, depression is like a mourning for the loss of my true identity. You know, really, who am I? And it's like there's a crisis in the soul of humanity. And when it bubbles to the surface, we put a label. You know, we say it's stress, anxiety, depression. But I often wonder, what is the culture? Why is it that inside, deep inside, so many people do feel this emptiness or this sadness? And I call our modern way of life the outside-in approach to life. We look outside for everything that we need inside. So what's important in this world is what title you have on your business card, what car you drive, which suburb you live in, you know what I mean? Very, very superficial things. And the result of that is this, a lack of meaning in life, a lack of purpose in life, and emptiness. And how do we fill that emptiness? With busyness. We just keep busy. Busyness sometimes is a form of denial, to look really deep, to see who I am really inside. And I think that I always feel today that as we develop my career, I need to develop myself. It's absolutely essential. I personally believe that this world is changing so fast that unless I develop myself, I won't cope with the rapid change of the world around me, unless I know that internal stability. And this is why I would say that the first step towards inner leadership is to know who I am. And I think sometimes inside of us there's like a power struggle of 3 personalities. In most of us, we have 3 personalities living. The first personality is what I call the facade that we present to the world. And that is what I call the first eye, the eye of arrogance or the eye of superiority. And this personality always compares myself with others. And I think I'm better, I know more, I am right, the way I like to do things is best. But when it filters into my feelings, this is when I feel easily insulted, disrespected, not valued, excluded, you know, those strong feelings. I would say whenever we have these feelings of feeling hurt, insulted, disrespected, don't look at the other. It's actually I'm being deceived by my ego. And when this is there, this eye of arrogance comes into my behavior, I become very bossy, controlling, forceful, dominating. And I begin to think, I'm fine, you're the problem. But it's like when this personality is ruling inside of me, quite frankly, I become a disaster as a leader. People may show me superficial respect, but inside they have no respect, because there's no genuine internal leadership there. And sometimes this personality is afraid that others will see through what I'm like, that I really don't have so much self-respect. So this first personality is like the ego of superiority. The second personality, which lives in all of us to a certain extent, is what I call the I of inferiority, or the I of lack of self-respect. And this is the flip side of ego. This is the I that doubts the self all the time. No matter how well you do in life, you know that little voice inside your head that often tells you you're not good enough, you're not performing well enough, people don't like you, people don't love you, people don't respect you. And when this personality rules inside my thinking, I feel sometimes hopeless, inadequate, inferior, unworthy, those sort of feelings. And when I wear the spectacles of this eye of inferiority, it distorts all my thinking. It distorts all the messages from others. I believe people are talking down on me. People don't respect me. But often it's just a creation of my own lack of inner wisdom or inner leadership or inner power, because the I of lack of self-respect is controlling my inner world. And often we swing between these two. When this I is in a leadership position, then I'm always plagued by self-doubt. And this is why the third I is the original I. And this I thinks that I am the soul, the spiritual being, the consciousness which resides in the front of the brain, the tiny point of life energy. And I, the soul, 90% of us have this understanding of the self as the soul. The spirit, the atma, the consciousness. We believe it, but we don't experience it. And really, the one with inner leadership begins to understand that I am this eternal self. And when it filters into my feelings, it's like coming home to a place inside where I feel so easy, so relaxed. I take the pressure off myself to impress other people, to look good, to be noticed. And I think that it enables me to really connect with my true self. And it's this I that is the inner leader. And this I actually has 3 faculties. And I would say that they are the mind, the conscious mind, the intellect, which is the judgment faculty. At every second of life, you are assessing. Even as I speak at the moment, there's a part of you saying, I like that, I don't like that, I agree with that, I don't agree with that, you do agree with that. It's like constantly assessing, and then there's the subconscious mind as well. And I would say that to really develop leadership qualities, and all the great leaders of people first were leaders of themselves. We have to develop some sort of mastery in my thinking and my decision making. And the mind is an extraordinary thing. This mind, some scientists believe, create 30 to 50,000 unique thought patterns in a waking day. Now, I've got no idea how they counted those thoughts. But in other words, there's a whole lot of thinking going on. The quality of your life really depends on the quality of your thinking. And yet, if I look at my mind, most of us are a victim of our own thinking. We overthink. The habit of today, we just can't stop thinking. A little thing happens and I begin to analyze it, and I just can't stop analyzing. Or overreacting. I often think that what is driving your thinking, maybe I'll try this microphone. What is driving your thinking? Mostly it's reactions. Someone says something, you think. Something happens, you think. You listen to news, you think. In other words, your mind is constantly reacting to the external world. But when you begin to meditate, what is happening? You're actually sitting down and you're creating the thoughts you want. It's like you're taking back the leadership in your own thinking. Rather than your mind reacting to life, your mind driving you in all sorts of directions, you are sitting down and starting to take your mind into the direction that you want. And I would say that the great wisdom of the inner leader is to observe rather than absorb. Mostly our minds today absorb everything. We absorb the praise, we absorb the criticism. We absorb the success, we absorb the failure. We absorb the atmosphere. Everything is affecting my thinking and my mind is going up and down. And I would say the first step to an inner leader is the observation of life, this natural detachment that when I know who I am as a spiritual being or a soul, rather than absorbing, being affected, I start to observe and see how everything is happening around me as the detached observer. This is such a state of wisdom. I feel the best leaders I've observed are the people who are caring, understanding, loving, but detached and uninfluenced. And really, if you look at people or leaders you respect, they have this internal leadership of their own state of mind. Secondly, my decision-making faculty. You know, I often feel that at every millisecond of life, you have to assess data. You know, you walk into a meeting, you've got to assess the personalities in the room, you've got to assess the atmosphere, assess the feelings, assess the content of the conversation. And not only the external data, the internal data, meaning your history with those personalities, how you feel about them, many, many things, your own fears, your own concerns, and then you have 1 second to decide how to respond. And I would say your whole success in your career depends on your ability in that 1 second assessment of situations. The more you're attached and influenced, you will make bad decisions. The more you're objective, as they say, the helicopter view, you're above, you see the whole situation. You're not deceived by your own emotions. You can make good and powerful decisions. The best leaders are very, very detached. And I remember I was in South Africa when Nelson Mandela became the president of that country. And I actually met a woman who was in his cabinet, a politician. And she said that whenever he had a big decision to make, even in the cabinet, he would close his eyes and just go into this deep place within himself. This sort of place where he can make an objective decision about a situation that is facing him. And so the first step, I would say, to an inner leader is to know who I am, begin to understand my mind, and actually take responsibility for my thinking. You know, often someone does something bad in the office. We don't like it, and we think about it. We can't stop. We can't even, go to sleep at night. We blame them. It's not them. It's me. It's my lack of control of my thinking, my lack of ability to put a full stop to negative and wasteful thoughts. We live in a challenging world, and I've got to train my thinking to observe it, but not to absorb it. And secondly, I think to really be an inner leader, I not only have to know who I am, I have to experience who I am. It's easy to know and it's easy to believe. It's so easy to believe things. but to experience takes a lot of patience and wisdom. You know, when I teach meditation, I often say the first step is to know, the second step is to believe, the next 998 steps is educating yourself how to feel and experience. Meditation is converting a theory into an experience. And that really means that I learn to transform the belief that I'm a soul into the experience of peace. The ultimate wisdom of the knowledge of the self is that my mind will become completely peaceful. And I often say that the aim of meditation is not to be peaceful. The aim is to know and experience who I am. And the whole inner world, the thinking cools down. I'm still alert, I'm still aware, but my mind remains calm. Not only when you meditate. And I was once a guinea pig in an experiment in the University of California at San Francisco. And there was a scientist there who was studying the effects of meditation. And it's a known fact, you all know. We know that when you meditate, you calm down. And you know they have data that meditators who are regular have 50% less hospital visits or doctor visits than other people. There's a lot of good reasons. We know that when I'm mentally happier, my immune system is much stronger. I'm more resilient to physical illnesses. There's so much data. But what she was interested in was that, is it just that when you meditate, you relax in the morning and then you go back to work and all the anxiety and stress and tension comes back? Or can you carry the feelings of meditation into your workplace, into your relationships, and into your family life too? And actually, I was one of her guinea pigs, and I had to sit. I sat in this little room, and she connected all these electrodes to me. And I had to sit in this little room for 6 hours, and she was measuring my brain waves. And at first she asked me to meditate, and she measured my brain waves. Then she asked me to sleep. I'm quite good at that, so I had a little sleep. She measured my brain waves. And then she gave me all these problems to do, like in the workplace. You know, when I had to do mathematical problems, geometric problems. I had all this problem solving to do, and I had to give her answers in a few seconds. And what she said was that we learn to meditate with eyes open, that those people, when you learn to meditate with your eyes open, you carry the peace of meditation into your daily life. And really, this is such a huge blessing in this world. I would say so much illness is because of a chronically stressed state of mind and emotional state. When I invest in myself and I learn to relax, it actually really improves the quality of my life, and I would say the quality of my performance in the workplace. The third thing that I would say we need to learn as an inner leader, firstly, to know who I am. That I am that spiritual being. Secondly, how to experience it. But thirdly, how to actually like, appreciate, even love who I am. And you know, it may sound strange, but that seems one of the hardest things for human beings to do today. To really feel not arrogant, but have this sense of well-being about myself. Because often we try to love the eye of arrogance or the eye of lack of self-respect. We try to love the image I've created, and it's not very lovable. The only real lovable me is I, the spiritual being, the soul. And I believe that we search for true love. We invest our hearts in relationships. It's the most natural thing we do with our families. But there's a huge human dilemma. And that dilemma is that no relationship is permanent. Whether it's time, whether it's change, whether it's conflict, whether it's death, no relationship is think this is why this third step is exploring the one permanent relationship in life, the relationship of the soul with the Supreme Soul, or the soul with God. And ultimately, this is really the second step in meditation, linking my mind with the Supreme Soul. And I think when we learn not just to sit and realize who I am, but I learn to link my mind with the source of power, it's like I develop this internal strength to rule my inner kingdom, to rule my inner world, to put a full stop to negative thinking, critical thinking. It is such an investment in my quality of life. And really, meditation, I've been a meditator for, as I think you heard, like perhaps many of you, for nearly the last 39 years, I never miss a day. And what I notice is that I wake up every morning, and before I let my mind reflect on yesterday, feel a bit upset or annoyed about something that happened, or fear what might happen today. You know, the habit of the mind to fear outcomes, what might be going on, what might happen. To sit calmly and using your own thinking to take yourself into a state of peace, to feel the love of that one eternal relationship is actually building up such a quality of life eternally. And I do feel that really to begin your day in this way influences the quality of your day. And it's like slowly, rather than my inner world being a victim of life, whatever opinions, beliefs, attitudes of my boss, my colleagues keeps affecting, I take back the control of my inner world. You know what they say, what do I have control of in my life? Do I have control over you? No. Do we have control over the economy? No. Do we have control over my boss? No. Where is my sphere of influence? It's just my thinking, my attitudes, my behavior. And if I want to change things in my life, this is where I need to start. Many people spend their entire life trying to change others. Can you do that? Do others change? I don't think so. But when you change, you can change the atmosphere around you. And I would say that if you spend a lot of time studying, it's great to develop your career. But if you develop yourself, develop your mind, develop your intellect, your decision-making power, develop awareness of yourself, what happens is that you actually become the inner leader. And I can guarantee you that is what people will respect. And when people respect you and like you, they want to come back to you as a client. I will tell you, most of business is personal, as you know. It's how they like you. They decide, I want to make you the person that I will buy a product from, and not somebody else, because they get a good feeling from you. Never underestimate the influence of your inner world, not only on your relationships with others, but on your own mental, emotional, and physical health too. Now, I'm going to wind up there because I know that time is short. But I would really love it if you have any questions or comments, just for a few minutes, and then I think Sister Uma is going to lead us in just a few minutes of meditation. So would anyone like to ask something? Comment? Yes, please.
Sometimes you say the leaders are, leadership skills can be developed by looking at your own self, managing your own self. But it's also said that leaders are born. So which one would be probably more true?
Both. I would say both are true. There's absolutely no doubt that some people have an innate quality about them. Definitely they're born, but definitely we can develop it. And on honestly, you think in your life, you think of, as in your career, the people who influenced you, the leaders. What influences you? It's usually their character, their personality, something about the way they treated you, the way they had respect for you, the way they had faith in you to grow as a leader yourself. And I think that a good leader, a great leader, holds the value of those they lead in their attitude. You know, I am remembering the woman who was the head of the Brahma Kumaris. She died just about 5 or 6 years ago for 38 years. And once I went to New York and I interviewed the Under-Secretary General of Political Affairs for a documentary. And he was Dr. James Jonah, and his job was to represent the United Nations Secretary General to meet all the leaders of the world. And at that time it was, Gorbachev, Ronald Reagan, that. And I asked him in this interview, who's the most impressive leader you've ever met? And he said Dadi Prakashmani, because she doesn't use leadership to fulfill her own needs. She's actually using leadership to serve others. And really, I think we respect a leader who's humble. How many leaders are humble? Today, often we use the leadership to build my self-esteem. But actually, a true leader builds self-esteem in others. And I think that, when we have those personal qualities, it's inspirational to the office. It's not you just come to work and it's just the routine, boring work. You want to be there because this person's personality is motivating you and inspiring you. And really, their skills has an influence, but it's mainly who they are as a person. And everything is subtle. I often feel we think people can't see what's in my mind. I don't agree at all. They don't see it, but they feel it. And if I as a leader am always having negative thoughts about those working for me, or critical thoughts, or even the thought that they're hopeless, why can't they improve? They feel that and they will not come close and they won't really cooperate. And I think that's why we can develop as a leader, but there's no doubt some people have an innate quality within them to lead others. But, you know better than anyone, much better than me, those people, the Gandhis of the world. Even Nelson Mandela actually, as you may know, he was incarcerated for 27 years. He was in jail for 27 years, and in that time, he really reflected on himself deeply. And that's what made him a great person. His life inspired. And I think that's the true leadership that we really want. Does anyone else have any thoughts? Yes, please.
We should reflect on ourselves and stop being critical and negative. Probably it's very difficult how we are not being meditative in our life. We never experienced all these things. So how can we stop that now and be a good leader for others?
As I said, the great leader holds the value of everyone they're leading in their attitude so people get a good feeling. We were just actually having lunch with a few people, and sometimes I have the thought that how can I tell how much ego I have? Often it's hard for us. We know anger, that's easy, but to me, it's how much I'm mentally critical. Mental criticism is actually a sign of the ego of inferiority. And usually, if I'm critical of others, it's because I'm critical of myself too. That inner critic, always looking at myself in a negative way. And I think it's a mental training. A leader who holds the value of those around them in their attitude will be very successful. Absolutely. Because people get a good feeling. But if I'm having that chronic critical thinking, it's like a barrier. They won't come close. They will say yes sir, superficially, but in their hearts, you haven't won their hearts at all. I'm actually extremely attentive to my attitude. Because what I often feel is your attitude propels your thinking into the atmosphere. Don't think people don't feel your attitude, they do. And when your attitude is one of respect. I once saw a survey in a workplace in Australia. And they asked people, what do you want most? And you know what they wanted most? More than a big wage packet, more than money, people want to be valued and respected. And I often say some workplaces are so well organized and yet there's not that value and respect from management, so it's not a happy place. The morale is low. But if the leadership is wise enough to know how to value people, respect them, give them chances, actually that's the environment where the morale actually grows. It's a very subtle thing. Attitude has a massive influence on everything. And that's where I literally train my mind to learn the good in other people. That's the foundation of successful relationships.
Start seeing positive signs.
Start seeing positive, but it's the usual thing. If you start seeing it in yourself, you can see it more easily in others as well. Definitely. So maybe we have time for one quick question if there is one. Otherwise, I think I'm a little bit aware of your time.
Anything from our officers?
Yes, please.
How much time do you need to invest in meditation while learning and afterwards?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I believe personally that when you start to meditate, I would start with a short amount of time and do it well. Start with 10 or 15 minutes where you have full focus, and then as you improve, grow that. But to me, meditation isn't something you just do in the morning and do in the evening. And during the rest of the day, your mind is going into chaos and storms. It's an attitude to life. It's like I make a decision. I'm going to live as a peaceful soul. And I have this image that my mind is like a crystal bowl, you know, and I've got this pure water, which is my thoughts in my mind. Wisdom is to keep it peaceful and still. And even if someone criticizes me or defames me, if I let that through the ears and to make that crystal bowl stormy, that's my weakness. Because the one who's wise will observe and not absorb. Or if I see something wrong and I let it disturb my inner world. So the thing is, a lot of us can meditate, but as soon as we go back to work, we let the mind become disturbed once again. And yet, really, a meditator carries it into life. A meditator, like I was saying, that scientist, you know, what she did was to show that when you meditate with your eyes open, and you carry peace into your daily activity, and it makes your working life much more fulfilling. And this is my own experience. When I began, I would meditate, and then you step into life, and still things affect you, disturb you, upset you. As you practice, you are present, contributing, but you're not being influenced. This is such a wonderful thing for the quality of not just your working life, but your family life too. And that's where I often say to people, some people start meditating, but the mind is so overactive they give up. It's too difficult. You have to persevere. And when you learn the art of just sitting and using your thoughts to take you into a calm place, is there any greater treasure in life? And really, this country is the hub of this in the whole world, you know. And I often feel, you know, when I travel the world, that I feel still the greatest export from this country is that intrinsic spirituality that most of you grow up with. But I see, if I'm very open, India is becoming more like the rest of the world, busy, 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 run, run, run. And yet, it's that thing which people are looking for more than anything. I think your greatest export is the traditional spirituality of this country. And I can say that when I met the Brahma Kumaris in London, I think as a country you'd be very proud of the image they give. The Brahma Kumaris operate in 140 countries of the world, in communist countries, in Muslim countries, and all over the world. They're very simple, they're very humble, they're clean, they're pure, and give an incredible impression of the traditional spirituality of this country. And I think that all I feel is to give time to your inner world is essential today. I don't think it's even an option. It's essential. To learn to meditate is an act of love for yourself. Anyway, it's been lovely to be with you. I'm always conscious of time because I know it's frustrating when people keep speaking. So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you very much. It's been lovely to be here, and I'm going to ask Sister Uma if she can lead us in some